Hi guys, welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Motunrayo. Welcome to MOBAIBE on YouTube. If you're watching for the first time, you're welcome, and if you're a returning subscriber, you're welcome back. The story is so sad. Like, it got to a point I had to leave because this is so sad. But this is me.
Created these holes to serve as sources of light and ventilation. The light went off them. We saw the darkness happening because of that. Some of them lost their sight because in this darkness for about 3 months. Later they went out. The sun rays affected the eyes of some of the captives. There are 5 chambers in the middle of the 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is the first chamber. Each of one chamber like this had about 200 men. 200 years at a time. This very one was called stronger chamber for those who are physically and mentally strong. Because of that, they chained them, putting the chains in this poles of the wall. When the dungeon was hot and they were screaming, they poured water on them from the boats to cool down the temperature a little bit. So those who were very thirsty sat each other's hair for some water to quench their thirst. It is estimated that 3 out of 10 died only in the dungeons because communicable diseases spread very fast. Once a while, they allowed some of the living to pack the dead bodies in bags, sacks, bottles, added cannonballs, put the bodies on canoes, paddled to some meters, and dumped the bodies into the sea. No contagious diseases here because they did everything to themselves. They defecated here, urinated, vomited. They ate after they slept in it, in their nights, with their bushy hair, rotten or decayed teeth, smelling bodies because some of them had wounds or sores on their bodies. So you had the stench, the flies, the mosquitoes, the pain, the anger here. Archaeologists led by late Professor Apanda came from archaeology department in Lagos and excavated this chamber. Out of that, they had chains, shackles, ropes, branded iron they used on the captives. We have all these in our main museum, but unfortunately our main museum is temporarily closed. They gave them food twice a day, but little food just to keep them alive. The domestic captives were bringing food for the commercial ones in the dungeons. But sometimes when they say we're hungry and the food was not coming, they became very aggressive, very angry. Because they say a hungry man is always a hungry man. So to avoid attacks, they did not come in with the food. Rather, they dropped food from holes like this down here. Those who are interested struggled for the food in the feces, in the urine, in the vomit. Those who couldn't struggle for food in feces, vomit, the British took them out, first opened their jaws with an instrument and pushed food in. They first fed them, so that at least they will eat something to keep them alive. We are in the middle of the middle dungeon, third chamber. We are all standing or walking on feces, urine, vomit. Land was again used as a spy hole, one of the spy holes. Some of the spies were commanded to stand up and listen to what was going on here. When those who were planning to attack or escape, they reported to the British and they punished them accordingly. The hole is covered in front of the church above this dungeon. I don't understand some of the Europeans myself, why they have their churches above the dungeons. At Elmina Castle, the Dutch established their reformed church on top of a female dungeon. In this castle, the British also built their Anglican church right above this male dungeon. So they appear to the churches, worshiping, singing praises, preaching the word of God. Love your neighbor as yourself. Thou shalt not kill. Captives were also in the dungeons, beneath them, suffering, crying, dying. So there is heaven and hell. Then Arnica, heaven and earth, hell down here, heaven and hell on earth. Chamber 5. So the last chamber is naturally brighter than the other 4 chambers because of this opening. You remember I indicated earlier that the captives were branded. Branded iron, the name, initials, number of the captive will be enforced on the iron. Heated, red hot. When the ships came and the captives were about to be loaded, in this last chamber, they were selected, counted per the branded marks. That is why they created this open for more light to see the marks. After that, those who were strong enough walked in a tunnel from here to the door of no return. They wanted the men out to go out through this one. Maybe financial instrument. They wanted the men to go out through this. Okay. But ways behind this block very hot, so they couldn't use it. Created a new one on the other side. Then it became necessary for them to link the dungeon and the exit. Hence they created a tunnel. The entrance is sealed with this wall. They sealed the entrance in the year 1833. That is when the British passed a law to abolish slave trade in their possessions and territories. We could have discussed it. So in 1833, they sealed the entrance to signify that slave trade is officially over by the British. When we step out, we shall see open parts of the tunnel. This is a shrine, traditional temple. We call it Bosum. There are 77 shrines like this in Cape Coast alone. This one is actually Cape Coast is you're worshiping the Almighty through a big rock on which this castle is built on. But the British king built the castle, and because they came of Christianity, were not allowing the locals to come around to worship on the rock. Cape Coasters carved these 2 stones from the rock into the community. They worshipped the shrine in town when the British were here. After the British, they performed rituals, brought back the same stones they came for, created the steps, put the stones on, and they worshipped the shrine here again. Normally, you're going to meet the priest sitting on. I think he's gone out now. That is why there are schools and churches for those who come here to worship and consult. So the shrine is still active. There are about 3 festivals we celebrate to commemorate our forefathers. Panafest, Emancipation Day, Year of Return, or Beyond the Return. During these festivals, they lay wreath and flowers in the dungeon. In the memory of those who died and those who passed, those buried in the courtyard. Of our ancestors. May those who died rest in peace. May those who return find their roots. May humanity never again perpetrate such injustice against humanity. We, the living, vow to uphold this. Very powerful. The Obamas were here 2009. In the same year I started working here. They came here 11th day of July. And I started working here around August and unveiled this plaque. Society for the propagation of the gospel. Society for the propagation of the gospel. SPG Church, First Church of England. Church of England is now Anglican. Anglican churches are all over Ghana. Methodist Church Ghana started from this courtyard, 1st January 1835. Catholic started from Elmina Castle. Presbyterian Church Ghana started from Christian Road, Accra. Now Children's Library, sitting on the male dungeon. This is the spy who we just saw in the middle of the male dungeon, remember? As indicated, sometimes they drop food through this one for the male captives. So, yes, imagine a British governor or a soldier was passing for a service and had something like a leftover bread. He could just drop it down through this hole, and the captives would struggle for it in the dungeon. So the guys in the church worshiping, singing praises like Amazing Grace, which was originally composed by John Newton. And John Newton was once a slave ship captain. Later he repented and became a reverend minister. Somebody stood here listening to whatever going on. When they were planning to attack or escape, they reported to the British and they punished them. Probably. captives down there. Let the Europeans held down there. Let's go to this side. If the weather is clear, we shall see Elmina Castle. And also talk about. First one from the left, there's a white spot just in front of the hill. That's Elmina Castle. You can let some of the boats and see how light they are. There's very light boats. You can carry around the cannons lined up, cannonballs fired for defensive purposes. No doubt the business was very profitable. It's that some of the European countries were fighting amongst themselves over the west coast of Africa. It's that this very piece of land on which this castle is built on changed hands severally. The Portuguese were those who first occupied this piece of land. They were here around 1555, but their attention was much on Elmina, so they left, and the people of Sweden came. They pulled down the wooden structure and built a fort. They also named their fort Fort Carlsberg after King Charles V of Sweden. Within 10 years, from 1654 to 1664, through wars, the Swedish fort fell to the Danes, to the Dutch, finally to the British. So 1665, the British started building the castle. So from Portugal to Sweden to Denmark to Netherlands to Britain. New York was called New Amsterdam. New Amsterdam was a Dutch colony. 1664 fell to the British. They renamed New York. On your way back to Accra, about 25 kilometers from Cape Coast, there's a village called Abanzi, Komanta Abanzi. On the right-hand side, there is a fort on a hill, unpainted. The British built the fort, so the fort was called Fort York. In the year 1665, just a year after, the Dutch also did war, this time round, captured the fort from the British. They also renamed Fort York Fort Amsterdam to retaliate what they lost in America. So New Amsterdam is now New York, Fort York here is now Fort Amsterdam. They make sure there is a soldier looking through this hole to get signals from the fort. Can you see the fort?
Oh, the one on top,
on top of the hill. The two forts, Fort Williams, Fort Victoria, were built to guard this castle. Both are built on hills. Soldiers up there from afar. They saw enemies, pirates, coming first before soldiers at the castle. When they saw anything like that, they gave the formation here, used signals, lights, flags, muskets. So the signal, especially the flag, the color determined the kind of information. So always there was a soldier standing here looking to the hole to get signals from them. Meaning there was no MTN, no Vodafone, no Wi-Fi, but there was WhatsApp. Occupied, just they called. Bigger than the German villages. 1, 2, 3, 9 windows. Compared to the dungeons, 200 and over captives were provided with 3 small holes. Half a window here is bigger than 3 holes in the dungeons put together. The bedroom is just here 5 windows. 5 plus 9, 14 windows plus 3 doors. So the British stayed upstairs comfortably, enjoyed the beautiful breeze. Africans, landlords, landowners held underground, poor, sometimes went to the door of the bed. This is where the soldiers were. Now gift and craft shops. The structure at the middle was the kitchen. So you could go downstairs after the tour and shop and make sure you shop so your money gets finished. Shop to drop, especially the non-Ghanaians.
So where are we? Where? What?
McLean's Hall.
Okay.
No for adjudication. Courts. George McLean died downstairs. He was here as administrator, president of the Committee of British Merchants, became a judicial assessor, established first European court in Gold Coast. The court existed in this hall. That is why they named this hall after McLean's Hall. Let's see the contents here. That man by which there is Reverend Philip Crowley. Philip was from Cape Coast. The father of Philip was a nobleman. It's that the son Philip was given scholarship by the church to study in Britain. Attended Oxford University. Ordained, became first black person to be ordained a priest of the Anglican Church. So he came back and worked with them for 15 years as a teacher and a reverend minister in the church and the school. Philip died 17th of October 1816. He was 75, meaning he came or even died before slave trade was abolished in the castle. So Philip was preaching the gospel after his fellow Africans were dying in the dungeons. The three are for Europeans. The first one up here for a soldier with very interesting name. C.D. Whitehead. Whitehead died in the castle. Whitehead, yes. He died in the castle July 1812. He was 38. A lawyer who joined the military. The one at the middle, Letitia Elizabeth London, came here to visit the last one, the husband George McLean. But the wife died only 2 months after her arrival. Rumors, gossips had it that malaria killed her. And that's as when she came, George, the husband, was having an extramarital affair with an African lady called Miss Ellen Bannerman from Accra, Osu. When Letitia heard that, she poisoned herself. Others as in the Osu lady posed the servants, came to the castle in the way of serving Letitia, she poisoned her. So to date, we don't know what truly killed Letitia. Whether it was parasite, homicide, or suicide. She died 1838, she was 36. George McLean came here as administrator. 2019, as part of the year of return activities, some of our brothers and sisters in the diaspora decided to unveil this plaque, the African Genesis Institute. They are saying we are the children of those who refuse to die. Though a lot of them died, but some survived. So these are all names of descendants. As indicated, the descendants are in millions. In percentage terms, this would be like 0.00001%. And if they all decide to place their names here, I don't think our walls will be enough. Only original door left, and the door is about 200 barriers. Keep your heads low, condemned say. This room was originally a storeroom. It was one of the storerooms. They closed this often when they wanted to use the room as a cell. And those captives wanted to fight for their freedom. The freedom fighters, but the British referred to them as stubborn or rebellious ones. They suffered for long, and as you are aware, when man is suppressed, oppressed, depressed, or repressed for a long time, one day he will stand up for his freedom. Those who try to escape. This is the tunnel which entrance is sealed in the male dungeon. You remember?
Oh yeah.
1833. They sealed the
That's
entrance.
how they went into the ship?
Yes. So they enter from the male dungeon. They walk past to the exit. And soldiers stood there just to keep an eye on them. This was the spy home. Move. Maintenance works. Here was the exit of the tunnel, sealed, locked up the sides. Walls were built in the tunnel after the slave trade, used part of the tunnel as storerooms and water systems. Some years back, we wanted to remove all the walls in the tunnel so that wonderful visitors like you could walk through. But experts said the structure is old, no annual runs. When the walls are removed, the tunnel moves. The men enter from the dungeon, walked into this place. They were exited through this one, but what was coming in during hard times, hence they sealed this. When this one was closed, the men now went this way. They joined the women to the door of no return. At the beach, they sat on canoes about 400 meters into the ships. And the bigger ships, the slave ships, were also called floating coffins. From there, everything's well. Why floating coffins? Because in the ships, the captives were packed like sardines, like cargo. Very difficult for them to even tell, like somebody lying in a coffin. And some of these ships had very ironic names. Names like Jesus, Liberty, Brotherhood, Glory of Africa, Santa Maria, Hope, God is able. So imagine a ship carrying slaves with the name Jesus. Female slave. And these same people who came with ships named Jesus, Santa Maria, and Santa Maria means Saint Mary. We are told from the Bible that Mary, the mother of Jesus, was a virgin. Some of the female captives were virgins as well, because they were taking them as low as 13 years. But they were not allowing these young girls to maintain their virginity to their own time. They were raping them. They were abusing some of these innocent female captives sexually. Those who denied them sexual advances, those women wanted to protect their little dignities left, but 8 were pushed in here, locked them up with heavy metal door, food, water once a day for them to hear, feces, urine, vomit, blood. As women, during that time of the month, everything into a hole here. 7 to 10 days, they were allowed to go back into the dungeons, just to punish them here. So next time, they will allow themselves to be raped, also to serve as a deterrent to the other women. The men had 5 chambers. 5 chambers for the men, but 2 for the women, because they needed more men than women to work on plantations. Though the women were able to work on plantations, especially to carrying farm produce like sugarcane. And one of the main reasons they were conceiving, they were taking women, was for reproduction. So they have this chamber and the opposite one. The 2 had about 300 female captives and children, both boys and girls, little above 13 and little above 13. So each chamber like this, 150. They also defecated here, urinated, vomited, menstruated. And one sad thing was, when they had their menses, everything flowed on them, So it ended and dried them, because there was nothing like sanitary pad for them, and they were never allowed to wash down. The floor not excavated, so you can imagine what we are standing on. Light ventilation from the walls. Upon all these conditions, the British still came in, picked some of the beautiful ones who picked up. However, those selected, they allowed them to wash down, gave them food, gave them something to wear after making their bedrooms. Out of that, some of them became pregnant. Stone houses were built in town with nurses and midwives. So they took them there. Nurses, midwives took care of them. Few years after delivery, those mothers who were weak were freed. Those who were strong enough were brought back. Later, they were shipped away. After the babies, majority of them died. The few that survived, they raised them, started a school with them. Some of them grew up, became workers here. Secretaries, clerks, interpreters, spies. Sent some abroad, some of them became supervisors because they were having like that skin. Some of these children were named by their fathers. Some of them, Europeans had concubines in town, wives in town, had children out of that. Some of them named them. Some local people adopted some of these European names. These are some of the reasons why we have many European names along the west coast of Africa, especially in Cape Coast. Smith, Grant, Wood, York, McCarthy, McLean, Wilberforce, Johnson, Jackson. You cannot do a tour of Cape Coast Castle without going through this door. This is the infamous door of no return. Our forefathers, our ancestors, passed through this door and never came back. They passed through this door, we lost contact to them forever. They passed through this door and embarked on a journey we call Fee Hankra, meaning they left here without even saying bye-bye to their loved ones. Most of them died because some researchers are saying in total, in all, the Europeans had about 60 million enslaved Africans in a business which lasted about 300 to 400 agonizing years. Out of that 60 million, they are saying about 10, 11, 12 million, depending on the researcher, made the journey across the Atlantic. So if 12 million made the journey, about 48 million perished. 48 million people is more than the population of Ghana. And all these people are talking about were no old men and women, were no children, 13 to 35, the youth. So the Europeans robbed Africa of our natural resources as well as our human resources. The original door was short and narrow. If you visit Elmina Castle, you will see the door in its original shape and size. But Cape Coast was the capital of Cape Coast. In 1877, they transferred the capital to Accra. So the British We're still here exporting our gold Irish spices even after the slave trade, hence it was widened. Chain shackles slaves bow down, squeezed themselves, one after the other, they passed to the door and never returned. You are going to pass to the door of no return, but I promise you, we are going to return. The other side, door of return, to break the jinx of door of no return. They named door of return on 1st August 1998, 22 to 33 years ago, when Ghana celebrated first Emancipation Day. On that very day, 2 caskets from the Cameroon contained skeletons, bones of 2 descendants died and buried. Madam Crystal from Jamaica, Samuel Cousin from New York, America. They exhumed their remains, brought them to Accra. Boarded a car from Accra to Port Amsterdam. Remember, we talked about that. When they got to Port Amsterdam, they said, no, you are not going to go by road again. Rather, you will go by sea, like the way our forefathers were shipped away. So they put the casket on canoes on the sea to this beach. Caskets, the remains were received by officials, sent them to the door to the courtyard. Short ceremony called Great Homecoming. Held in here, they sent the remains to Asin Manso for reburial. Asin Manso is a town on the way to Kumasi. There's a river there called Slave River, no conceal. Those captives coming from that direction, when they got to Asin Manso, they stopped them, shaved them, gave them back, smeared their bodies with shebaka or palm oil. So those who were somehow old with some grey hairs, and those who were weak would look younger, attractive, for high prices in the castles. So they spent a couple of weeks, months in here, never back. Last African bath at Asemanso. That is why they sent the 2 remains of Madam Crystal, Samuel Cousin, for reburial. On that day, August 1, 1998, when the jinx was broken, they named the other side of door of no return, door of return. Inviting our brothers and sisters, African Americans and Europeans to come back to Africa, learn the history, see Africa for themselves. When you return, you saw the word godly listed Aquaba. And Aquaba means welcome. So we are all welcome. Before we say bye-bye, the plaque I talked about has a very powerful information. In everlasting memory of the anguish of our ancestors. May those who died rest in peace. May those who return at least find their roots. May humanity never again perpetrate such injustice against humanity. This is what Abraham Lincoln said, and I quote, "Whenever I hear anyone arguing for slavery, I feel a strong impulse to say it right on him personally." End of quote. To me, what I was trying to say is, if you want to treat your fellow human being as slave, if you want to train your slaves, come, let's lock you up in the dungeons for a couple of weeks, couple of months. When you come out of the dungeons, then you think you feel it's comfortable in here, you can then start keeping your fellow human beings in the same condition. On this note, the guided talk and tear, once again, the name has been Richard Kwesi obeying your guide for the tour. Have a nice evening. Send you to our viewers.
Thank you. At the main gate, security post, then the entrance. So now I'm leaving